Great. So what I'm going to talk about right now is what is your expectation for the mentors, right? And you can of course read more details. They're all publicly available, but do want to share a little bit more about what this means for all of you as we move forward in this journey. So let me get back to the where I left you all. So like I said, the coding period begins in 1st of July. We've got certain check-ins that happen bi-weekly, and then there is a midpoint showcase and the endpoint showcase. So just keep these 5 timelines very clearly in your mind. Now, what's the larger goal, right, of going through this entire period? I shared a little bit about this a brief while ago, but what's the, if you were to just look back, right, what's the larger goal? Larger goal is that you are able to meet all the milestones that you've planned for, right, and are able to essentially check in what you have to um, uh, during the end of this period. So that's the overall, goal that you have. Now, in this, what's important is what's the sort of mindset that you want to have while you're going through this journey of 8 weeks. So, number one, these are very important things because along each of these, you should be able to explore and get as much as you can, right, for you from your time. Number one, learning and skill development. You really have to identify consciously, learn, summarize for yourself what you're learning, and keep that lens of learning very clearly on, right? Second is this is a great opportunity for networking and community engagement. Networking is not just limited to us here, 100 of us. It's your mentors, it's 100 of us. It's also the larger community, right, that's out there on Discord, and also the community that's not on Discord, right, but is interested in the kind of things you're doing. Third is professional growth. You want to think about how is this adding up from a professional perspective, right? Learning and skill development is one part of the handshake. When you showcase this learning and skill development, then you're moving on the professional growth side, right? Like if you've learned something, or if you learned how to articulate your problem statement on GitHub, now if you've learned it, the more you showcase it, the more you grow professionally, because then you start creating a very clear skill that you can showcase and get recognition for. So the professional growth angle is one larger angle. And the last is the ability to, or the zeal, like we call it, to make large scale impact. Idea really is that you should think large scale. You can of course not always focus on scale, but the larger goal of providing you experience of DPD so that you can think large scale impact, right? So we'll focus a little bit on all four of these just to give you some perspective on what does it mean for all of you as soon as when you start sort of getting into this. So let me just give you a brief overview. Yeah. So how do you ensure that all these 5 things are met, right? So now just making it as simple and clear to all of you, right? Number one is to have promptness in engaging with the mentor. You will have to, at the end of the day, be very prompt with the mentor, ask questions, get all the points that you want cleared, right? Otherwise, the mentor will assume that you know. Otherwise, you really have to, a lot of the engagement here will be dependent on you asking questions. Second is, what we've observed a lot in our functioning is that PRs typically get submitted right towards the end, right? You have to build a habit of doing continuous PR. So we'll come to that as well, but that's another very clear practical piece that you want to implement. Third is keep a check on how you work, like what's the quality of your work, right? And that will be based on the feedback that you're seeking. So seek as much feedback, right? Anytime you feel that you're not getting feedback, or you feel that there is no feedback, assume that there is something missing. So you must dig down, get quality feedback, so you can also ensure that your work is moving forward well. Fourth is, in all of this, right, you need to have a very positive attitude, because any of this open source contributions, if any of you have done this, you'll realize that a lot is dependent on your own engagement, and the more positive you are, the more sort of you can put through your ideas well, you can debate, discuss well. It's never about your idea or my idea, right? It's about improving the idea collectively. So remember, there's nothing personal in any of the work that you're doing in terms of discussions. The idea is really to build it well, and get the idea out there, implemented well. And last is to plan for all of this time. So this is very, very important, because the more you plan for your 8 weeks, the better you can get out of those 8 weeks. Let me get into a little more detail. So when we come to promptness in engaging with the mentor, what does this mean? This essentially means that you are able to ask your doubts, right? So that's number one. Second, you may get off a call with the mentor, and I'm just telling you practically that this will happen. You may feel that you're not clear about what to do next. Well, if you're not, get on that, continue on that call, or get on the email, but get that clarity. Summarize for the mentor that you said here is 1 2 3 4 5 things. Is this correct? Right? Because often the mentors would communicate something, it may land differently for you, right? Because mentors are working with their own teams, they've been in this place for a while, they may have a certain way of work. But just to ensure you have full clarity, please ask very clear questions around whether, if you have a meeting, and this is a habit that I tell all the team members, even at Samagra, very good habit. If you get on a call with the mentor, at the end of the call or end of the meeting, summarize what you got out of that discussion. Because if there is any gap in communication, right, or understanding, it will get corrected immediately, right? Otherwise, you may end up assuming something, doing work, only to have it corrected, or getting it redone later. So very good professional habit. After a call, summarize the key points that you've understood from the call, get them validated, and then move ahead with your work. So that's important. And any doubts that you have during the calls, or async, please keep clearing them. Assume as little, but of course, get the right level of questioning going with the mentors, right? So, and then they'll ensure that they try and answer as much as possible for you. But the idea is not to ask questions about how do you do this or how do you do that. Form your opinion on how to do it, right? Ask any doubts or assumptions that you have, get those clarified. On calls, get clear feedback on the direction, and summarize what you're learning at the end of it. You will see a positive change in your own ability to do work at the end of the 8 weeks if you do these 3 things well. And you may end up using different channels like we mentioned, but aim really is that whichever channel you use, you can get your doubts cleared, get direction on the call, and summarize at the end what you're understanding, and then get that validated. Okay, now the second important part, as you are working on your PRs, please keep checking in, and have an iterative method to these PRs, because at the end, your PR may be too large for a review to finish within a timely manner, and that will impact you getting a certificate, you getting your stipend, right? So you don't want that to happen. And secondly, even if you look at industry, it's a good practice to get, to be in this iterative way of doing PRs, because otherwise you may get feedback too late for you yourself to accommodate and build upon. So please align with your mentors and try and ideally do a PR check-in every week, if not earlier, but at least every week is a good place to be. Third, submit quality work. What this means is you want to ensure that your code is reviewed well, right? And you're following certain coding best practices. Now, this is very, very important, because this is where you actually learn how to check in code that can be reviewed by people, and can be checked into larger code bases. So your one of the sessions we are going to be having over the next few days is around coding best practices. So the idea really is that take all the learning from that session, implement it practically, right? Like, we are only sharing practical pieces with you because we want to see that change also and we want you to experience it essentially. So figure out what is some things that you already know, and what is the gaps that are there in your coding practices. Leverage the session that we have during the bootcamp for it, and then start implementing them. And when we check in with you all, sometime over the next 2 weeks, idea would be to hear from you how you're actually implementing these best practices. Now, this positive attitude, like I said earlier, very, very important. Idea is that you'll have to be independently motivated, right? Like, you'll have to think well, you'll have to listen to feedback and be very patient and respectful. Idea really is that, you want to get as much feedback as possible. And remember, the feedback is not on you, right? The feedback is on the work that you're doing, and with the aim that the work can be improved jointly, right? Collectively. So everybody is working as a team. So be patient, be respectful. Even the mentors will be the same with you all. And the aim really is that you can listen well, and the only way that you can evaluate whether you're listening well is, like I mentioned earlier, summarize what you're hearing after the call in a nice crisp way to say that this is what's coming out of the discussion. And that will also build your skill of listening and ensuring that you've got the right points from the discussions. But I'm hoping all of you would probably have a very positive attitude. That's why you reached here. But continue with that and then build on it as we move forward during the program. Then project planning. We'll also be having a session around this over the next few days. But overall, I can't emphasize enough on planning, because at the end of the day, the only thing you have in your hand is the control of your time, right? We do want to ensure that you get into a good habit of monthly, weekly planning, and the ability to review your progress against what you're planning, right? Um, if you look at any professional organization, wherever you all work further, some places may have good planning, some may not, right? So given that we've understood the impact of or the benefits of planning well, we want to ensure you understand that early on in your careers. And which is why this may sound like a trivial session that, hey, I can put an Excel sheet plan for my week, right? But there are lots of nuances when it comes to planning, right? Like I'll give you some. Like, how do you ensure that you have adequate buffer, right? Like you plan for only 75%, never plan for 25%. You front load certain things, you create certain white spaces based on what you're doing. All of these are techniques of good planning, which we'll be doing the session around, and we really want you to think well and plan for yourselves, and then we'll be happy as a team to also guide during the 8 weeks, any of you, wherever you face a challenge around any of these points that we're discussing in the bootcamp. We've also created a group, a Discord community group for all of you. Idea is that any learning that you are having from this bootcamp, which you're implementing and is working well for you, we want you to share that. Any challenge that you're facing, want you to share that, because only then will we sort of be able to support in a timely manner. So which is why project planning very, very important. We'll cover that again during the session. Now, these are some of the points that we want you all to adhere to, right? Like some mindsets and some ways of work, right? But at the same time, do want to call out, mentors also have very clear roles and responsibilities, right? For them, what's the mindset of a mentor? Just so that you all are very clear, these are mentors who are very passionate about mentoring, right? They're very passionate about improving their open source projects. They are owners. They are sort of the key drivers of their projects. They are also interested in sort of building a network of community, right, around their projects. A lot of them, actually most of them, have been mentored themselves in their journey, so they also want to pay this forward. So that's another mindset that they have. And all these mentors you would see are open to ideas and perspective, right? Ultimately, when you work with governments, or when you work with governments, a lot of times you feel that the person sitting on the other side, which is from the government, doesn't want to listen to you because he or she has a certain way of work. Actually, it's not that, right? Like if you go deeper, there are multiple layers, there are different incentives, there are different mindset behaviors. But at the end of the day, you realize that the person is wanting to do things, but there are other things that that person has as cares that you have to overcome to sort of get there. Now, if you look at the mentors, they are, of course, you don't have any of these layers to peel with them, but they are all open to new ideas, perspective. But everybody has their style of working, right? Some are very open to ideas and will tell you, please, go explore. Some are very skeptical, right? Like they'll ask you 10 questions, right? So the idea is be cognizant of that different people come from different places and mindsets. They may have different ways with which they explore ideas with you, but at the end of the day, you will see a very consistent set of mindsets across your mentors, right? And then you would see multiple mentors from different backgrounds, but some of these points will be consistent across all of them. What they are also working towards is to ensure that all of you have, will do some net promoter score, right? Like all of you will be asked certain questions. They want to ensure that the score is high, right? Like last year, it was over 9 out of 10. So they want to ensure that you all have a good experience, right? It's not so much about just about getting this 2 month work of work, going and co-checked in. It's also, to have all of you as open source champions and as product leaders for whatever work that you're doing. So it's their interest, like their goal is actually to have a good experience for you guys. That's like number one above anything else. So just sharing this with you all, because this is something that's going to be consistent with all the mentors. Some of the things that the mentors are also focusing on is to ensure there is clarity in the communication that they're providing to you, right? They are also focusing on the fact that there is some timeliness in their response to you. They will also be reviewing PRs on the go as opposed to doing it at the end. They're going to ensure that whatever you're working on has a very clear impact orientation. And, I think a lot of times you may contribute to open source communities and not feel appreciated. You should not have that experience here. I think we are a community, we're very appreciative of each other, and the fact that we've all come together, you'll see that at least being something that you shouldn't have to, think about again. You will feel appreciated, and that's what we want. Because as a community, the only way we grow, we'll all make mistakes, no doubt. But the idea really is to continue and sort of build a character on working together, learning from mistakes, not doing the same mistakes again, and then pushing forward in a positive direction. So that's what are the core roles and responsibilities for you all, and in a brief overview of what the mentors are doing. All this information will also be available on our public GitHub links that we have on our wiki, so that you can access it later as well. And I think there is a little more detail as well. So Venkatesh, can you also share the link of the expectations that we've put up also on our wiki, just so that everybody can also access it afterwards?
Yes, I'll share it. Yes.
Got it. So thank you, everyone. I'm going to stop here, but happy to answer any questions that you may have.
So folks, we can take some of the residual questions from the previous session, as well as new questions you might have after having gone through these two sessions. After 5 minutes, we will be breaking up for a break of 10 minutes, followed by a session by an external session, which will be running from 5 o'clock onwards, and then followed by that at 6 p.m. we'll be having a session of informal interaction between us. So it will be an ice-breaking session. So these are the two major agendas which are remaining. So you can ask questions now. We can have a break, and then followed by the next speaker.
Yeah, just to give you an overview, at 5 o'clock we have Ravi, who is a super mentor. Ravi Prakash, he's the person who designed driving a lot of he's driving basically Beacon. Beacon powers ONDC, powers Namayatri, is powering a lot of things globally. So he's going to come and talk to you all about what it takes to contribute towards GPG. So exciting session coming up. A very hard person to catch, by the way. Just very difficult to pin him down, but he's given us an hour, and look forward to having him here. Okay, so some questions coming up. Can you shed light on the working hours flexibility along the coding period? Yeah, so Zed, so to your point, what we'd expect is that every week, I think there are a certain number of hours that you want to put in. Now, exactly which hours, those would be dependent on the engagement that you have with the mentor. I think nobody is going to be so all mentors will be open to whatever time that you are working on. But I think the larger goal here is you will have certain time periods on which you'll want to interact with the mentor, right? So be clear with that, like as in 4 to 5 we'll be discussing queries, or what time is the two things you want to make clear with the mentor is at what time is the mentor going to be reviewing, right? Like if the mentor is doing reviews early morning, then you want to ensure that before that you can send whatever queries you have. Or if the mentor is doing midday reviews, so you want to ensure that you plan accordingly, right? Second, if there is a call that you have to schedule with the mentors, that you should align for, right? Besides that, you can work whenever you want to, I mean, that's something that you can work with a mentor, but there is no hard or fast rule to say 9 to 6 you need to be in. Main thing is we are assuming all of you are, that way mature, you have your milestones in mind and will work towards achieving your milestones, right? In the time period. Okay, Kanksha is asking, will our stipend also depend on our performance in the project? Yes, stipend is dependent on your completion of the project, right? You don't want to not complete your project. So completion of the project and a successful check-in into your project, the repository of your work will essentially close your stipend payments, yes. Harsh is asking, can you clear what are requirements for consideration on completion of every project? Yeah, so I mean, like I said earlier, you want to complete the project. There are certain parameters. Venkatesh, do you have like maybe you're covering it in a different session, like what it means to check in finally all the things that you have in the code? Like what are the 5-6 things that we want to have before you close your final check-in?
I think we will have it in one of the subsequent sessions.
Okay, I think it's probably then in the third day that Shruti will be covering. So, Harshit, to your point, you'll get more details around that by the third day. When will we be having a one-on-one session? Yeah, so like we were sharing earlier, one-on-one session with the mentors will begin next week. And then the other part is that you will have to then, based on your mentor, identify when you'll be meeting. Like I said, some mentors want to meet Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Some only want to meet one day. So you'll have to identify that with the mentor on what works. At least a minimum of once a week, you guys should have a discussion in like a video call. Rest can happen async, but if more than that is possible, then that will be great. So I would suggest that you identify this one-on-ones with the mentors. Our team members will ensure that you're supported there. So if in case you're not able to identify a time with the mentor, please reach out to Navneet with Venkatesh, and they will ensure that that is set up well. But essentially now you and your mentor are actually primary folks in an engagement together, right? Like from that perspective, you have all the leverage. If I have to say it very clearly, you can ask the mentor any question. You can ask the mentor any of the points that you want to ask them. So you can drive that engagement directly with the mentors. So just letting you know. Okay. Yeah, Dipali, how can we get more out of it? Yeah, do you want to just share, like, as in, like when you mean more, you mean like what any specific thoughts that you have, like as in on what direction that you want to explore? Anything, Dipali, that you want to share? So essentially, like all in this entire engagement, like I was sharing earlier, there are certain aspects that you will be able to explore, right? Like one is the mindset that we talked about, but the other is all the points regarding quality, the coding best practices, your project planning that you should learn, right? Your ability to articulate well. All of these are areas that you will end up exploring. You will be tested on it, right, by yourselves. You will see like what you're doing. You will see what the benchmark is. Then you'll want to improve yourselves on that journey. So all of these aspects that will come in this journey. So it's not just about closing the code, it's also about all these other aspects that will give you a good experience over the next eight weeks. Hope that sort of covers your question. Ayush, can you issue an offer letter or some documents so you can show college and manage attendance concerns? Okay, so ideally, we can share an email saying that you're selected, which I think you all would have already received. That's what we would do at this point. If there is a specific challenge that you have with the college, would request that you discuss that with the college. I don't think we will be able to have a separate discussion with the college to manage attendance. I'm hoping that you'll be able to work around this. So like we have people also who are in colleges, who work also in some of these organizations, but are able to identify what's the time that works for them. So I would say if there is an issue where you absolutely cannot get any time and need any support, specifically just reach out to Navneet and Venkatesh. But ideally, I would say that that's a discussion that you want to have with your mentor first, to say that given the time that you have free, how can you engage and how can you work during that time, and what are those time slots. And second, if you feel that is still challenging and you still need to figure out something with the college, then reach out to Navneet and Venkatesh. But like I'm saying, I think the college, I'm not sure how much leverage we'd have separately to speak to the college, but happy to do that if